so I'm Laura Bowie. I'm the Executive Director for the Gulf of Mexico Alliance. I think I know probably most of you. So I wish I could see your faces because it's been a long time since we've been face to face, but hopefully it won't be too much longer. I thought since we really didn't see each other, in 2021 again, I thought maybe I'd give a quick update to how we fared in 21 and then what's more importantly, what's on the horizon for 2022. So I'll give you a little bit of details about GOMA in general, just in case there's somebody who's new to us. I'll give you some sneak peeks into our action plan, our newest action plan, and I'll point out some ways that we can work together or meet together or share data or share resources in 2022. So that's what the next few minutes are going to be all about. Before I go to the next slide, I wanted to point out we have a new logo. I'm hoping everybody noticed that, but now that I've pointed it out, I hope you do notice it. We decided we needed a refresh on our logo since it's been a while. It's been several years. We just wanted to try to get something that's cleaner and with more updated fonts. So you will see this more often. Please, if you ever see the old one floating around, just let us know and we'll replace it. All right, let's make sure there we go, slides change. So first, I'm just going to do a little background on GOMA. In case anybody is super new to GOMA, it'll totally help with context. We're a regional network of stakeholders that was initiated by the 5 Gulf state governors in 2004 to basically collectively address priority issues concerning the Gulf of Mexico. So our mission is to enhance the ecological and economic health of the Gulf through increased regional collaboration. And it's these last 3 words, increased regional collaboration. That's what the governors were trying to foster all those years ago, and it's stuck. So even today, we're still meeting, we're still coordinating, and we're still collaborating on priority issues concerning the Gulf of Mexico. So you might be wondering, like, who exactly is GOMA, right? Well, we have approximately 1,000 active members. Really, it's a little over 1,000 now, from state and federal agencies, NGOs, academia, and businesses from around the region. There's about 150 organizations that voluntarily participate on different teams and committees and working groups. And we have 2 advisory committees. We have a federal working group that has a listserv of about 150 federal employees that operate in the Gulf. And we have a business advisory council that represents the 7 largest industries in the Gulf. So this is our structure. You can see that the foundation of GOMA is really the governors, but they proxy the daily duties down to the directors of the natural resource agencies in the state. They, along with our federal agencies, our founding federal agencies, which is EPA, NOAA, and Fish and Wildlife, together they govern GOMA. So we have 2 advisory committees that I mentioned a moment ago, our Business Advisory Council and a federal work group. And we have a small alliance staff right there in the middle that we just keep the plates spinning, basically. But these green boxes at the bottom, that's where the real work gets done. That's our priority issue teams and then our cross teams. And we'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute. So like I mentioned, this is where the planning, the projects, the real work gets done. You're not supposed to read this slide necessarily word for word. I just want you to notice that there's a lot of names and agencies on this slide, and that's for a reason. It takes a lot of people to make these teams work. So each of our teams is chaired and coordinated by a state agency person. That's in the green font. Each of our teams has a steering committee that's comprised of a representative from each of the other states, and that's in green font. And then each of our teams has representation from our federal partners who serve as liaisons, and that's in the blue font. But what's missing, what you don't see here, is all those other people who are instrumental in making these teams work, and it just wouldn't all fit on the slide. We also have cross-team initiatives that involve 2 or more of our priority issue teams. So again, there's many, many people who make up these cross-team initiatives, and they make the teams work as well. This is the GOMA staff. We're small but mighty. We really just kind of keep the plate spinning, like I mentioned. Together, collectively, we oversee the activities that GOMA is involved in on a daily basis, whether it's, the GOMA teams or GOMRI science or finding Gulf Star partners or paying bills or issuing grants or contracts, right? So we're spread out across the region, but we can all be found at gulfofmexicoalliance.org. So you can contact any of us there. You may see, I want to point out, you may see a new face introducing Amanda Nally right there on the bottom right-hand corner. She's our new communications manager. She is making it a priority to communicate what's going on with our partners around the region. So if you get a chance, please reach out to her if you'd like to make a connection, and if GOMA can help you spread your message across the Gulf, then we want to do that. Also, the blank circle, we have an opening right now for a diversity, equity, and inclusion fellow. We've been in the interview process for the last month or 6 weeks, and we should be able to fill it by next month. So we're really excited about that. So that's a TBD position. Let's see, Christina, I'm going to pause there and see if anybody has any questions. I should have mentioned, so while everybody's thinking about questions. This is interactive. I prefer to interact with people, right? And so if you have a question along the way, feel free to put it in the chat box or hold on, and we're not going to take them at the end. I'm just going to stop every so often and see if anybody has any questions. So I'll pause here and see if we have anything. Anything I need to address, Christina?
No questions yet.
All right. So if there's anybody out there who has a question, please let me know. We can get it to change slides again. There we go. So let's talk about the highs and lows of 2021, right? I thought, and you probably did too, we were going to be in person last year. Probably. Like everyone else, we have been working from home again. We had, just like in 2020, we had to be virtual again, but we still got a lot done. We did have to cancel our annual all hands meeting again for the second year in a row. And because of that, we thought, well, by September, we should be clear, right? We had decided to move forward with team meetings, mid-year meetings, all happening at the same time. We'd hoped for them to be in person in Biloxi back in September. But that is exactly when, if everybody remembers, that's exactly when the Delta variant raised its ugly head. And we had to quickly pivot all of those mid-year meetings to virtual. But in the end, we had over 250 people that logged in and attended various mid-year meetings for the teams. So we had 6 concurrent virtual team meetings going on all at the same time, and we did that for 3 days straight. So the teams did a tremendous job to convert what they thought was going to be an in-person meeting and convert their entire agenda over to virtual. It turned out to be a really huge success. So it just wasn't the same as being in person, but that's just the way the year went. We also held a virtual preview for what's to come for GOMACon, which we'll talk a little more about in a minute. Over 600 people showed up for a 3-hour preview of this conference, so we're hoping that that's an indication of how successful the in-person event will be later this year. In 21, this was probably one of the best things that happened for GOMA in 21. We published our action plan 4. Yay! We have published 4 action plans throughout the years. Our most recent one is on the bottom right-hand corner, Governor's Action Plan 4 for Healthy and Resilient Coasts. You'll notice that each one is signed by all 5 Gulf state governors, and that's key for us. We really can't move forward without the signatures or the support from the governors. And it's not easy to get all 5 governors of our Gulf states. They're all different political stripes, but to get them all to support 40+ pages of environmental language was a real feat, but we did it. So believe me, those governors and their staffers anyway read every single word because they came back and asked questions. So that's how we knew. So we did it. We did it by working from the bottom up, starting with the priority issue teams. Each of those plans was created by you, the members of the GOMA teams. And if you're currently a member, and if you have been for a while a member of a GOMA team, then you know this process is not an easy one. But we do have a process. First, we get the stakeholders and our team members to identify priorities that could use a regionally collaborative approach, right? The teams wrote the actions that they felt could be achieved within 5 years, and then we sent it up the chain from there, right? State and federal agency directors reviewed every one of those actions and agreed to put their financial and policy support behind them. And then finally, the governors had to review it, and they agreed to support these actions that the teams wrote. The actions are regional in nature and are important for enhancing the ecological and economic health of the Gulf of Mexico. Like I said, the governors read it. They read every single word. They had questions. We had to explain things, but in the end, we got it all done. So this is our newest action plan. It was just released in October. It has similar overarching goals as our previous plans, which is, forums for collaboration, which really, that's our signature role, to provide forums for collaboration, right? But also tools and projects to address regional issues, enabling strategic partnerships, and tracking restoration. Those are the overarching goals. They're very similar to previous plans. But this plan also contains some very specific commitments to sharing or providing access to regional data sets, also serving underserved communities and populations, and incorporating drivers such as sea level rise, climate change, land use change, et cetera, into the planning and models that are used by the communities themselves. So as far as our priorities go, you'll recognize that some things are always a priority, with more work to be done. And then we've added a couple of new ones too. So let me show you what those are. Yep, there we go. There are chapters in the action plan devoted to each of our priorities. So this first one is coastal community resilience, and they have several goals that they want to accomplish with this action plan. So it's the next 5 years, remember. Namely, they want to really increase the use of resilience tools that have been developed over the years. They want to promote proven policies that have been shown to work in the last several years. So they've been working on these for a while. And they want to promote more natural resource strategies specifically for resilience. So they're going to have 3 focus areas: risk and resilience communication, risk and resilience assessment, and resilience planning and adaptation. Our data and monitoring team's goals are to provide common regional guidance for monitoring mapping so that the data sets can have comparability. They also want to enable data and monitoring integration into a wide variety of other regional efforts, including those related to restoration. So this team is self-organizing into 2 different groups, namely the Gulf-wide Gulf-wide Mapping Network, I wanted to mention that one first, which is going to coordinate and communicate essential mapping needs and standardized information. And then the Gulf-wide Monitoring Network, which is going to organize the development and implementation of a comprehensive monitoring structure in support of state and regional programs. This one may sound familiar to you. It's a great effort that's being resurrected from previous action plans. Let's see, okay. Our habitat team goals are to coordinate the regional status and trends of priority habitats, like salt marshes, mangroves, seagrasses, oysters, and benthic. Also to promote the use of living shorelines instead of hard armoring. And then lastly, to encourage regional sediment management of dredge materials for restoration and other uses too. So this team is organized into working groups to go along with those goals. So the Habitat Assessment Work Group will coordinate development and communication of information on those priority habitats that we mentioned. The Living Shorelines Work Group will develop, promote, and evaluate best practices for stakeholders to implement living shorelines. And the Regional Sediment Management Work Group will coordinate information that informs the availability and allocation of Gulf sediment resources, becoming more and more popular across the Gulf. let's see, yeah, education. The education team's goals, the goal really, they have one real big goal, is to simply enhance the stewardship of the Gulf and its watershed. And oftentimes they feel like that is going to happen through more effective collaboration. So they're forming subgroups to focus on collaborative educational partnerships that will build capacity and expand local, regional, and national learning and action opportunities, as well as stewardship, you know, because it all leads to stewardship. They're also going to have a subgroup for alliance engagement activities, which will integrate our GOMA activities to promote public awareness and stewardship of the Gulf and its watershed. So to outward, basically, take what we're doing and talk about it out. Let's see, outward. I never tell if my page is turned. There we go. Our water resources team has 3 goals: advancing science and technology for water protection, acquiring new or additional data sets, because so much more monitoring is needed to get a complete picture. And then also to demonstrate the connectivity between water quality and quality of life for coastal communities. You know, for example, you know, you can't swim at your beaches, or so you can understand why you can't eat the seafood sometimes. They really have 4 focus areas that they're going to identify. They want to decrease threats to aquatic life, eliminate impacts to water quality, protect water resources, and promote stewardship. So lots of projects to fall into those broad categories. Our wildlife and fisheries team goals are to support diverse wildlife and fisheries populations, and to collect and provide data to policymakers and natural resource managers. Now, these are very broad, but they're very broad for a reason. It allows the team to tackle many different species and not leave anybody out as more and new and more information comes along. Really, they're going to have 3 focus areas to really develop projects along the lines of species status and trends, species conservation, and collaboration and data sharing. So we have 3 cross-team initiatives, which means multiple teams contribute to achieving their actions. As you can guess, our coastal resilience team, our habitat resources team, and our wildlife and fisheries team all participate in this integrated planning cross-team. Their goals are really related to integrated community planning and include conservation, restoration, and resilience into one effort. They want to develop tools and support or promote integrated models to that effect. So they're really going to have 3 focus areas: strategies for adaptive resilient concepts, forums and tools for local communities, natural and human system models. So if you're joining us today and you're from one of our Gulf communities, please stay tuned. This is an effort that you want to stay close to. Lots of opportunities there. Another of our cross teams is human benefits of nature. And it's participated in by members of our habitat resources team and our wildlife and fisheries team primarily. They want people to understand how protection, restoration, and management of coastal and marine resources benefit people. So this one's very people oriented. This one is where a focus on blue economy and ecosystem services will be addressed. We needed a name that really reflects how natural systems benefit us, the people that live in those natural systems. And so that's where we got human benefits of nature. They're going to have 3 focus areas: connections between nature and human use, benefits of the ocean and the coastal economy, and benefits of restoration and protection. And our last cross-team initiative is marine debris. Members of the water resources and education engagement team primarily participate on this one. Their goal is to address several issues associated with marine debris in the Gulf of Mexico, basically boils down to assessing it, preventing it, and removing it. So this is, in fact, this team had a meeting the last 2 days, and so I'm going to pause here, Christina, and see if there are any questions that I need to address. need to answer.
We do have
like I said, I want this to be
question.
interactive. Yep, go ahead.
Yep, so Kim Miller asked, what were some of the hot button issues during the governor's review of the action plan?
Oh, put me on the spot, Kim Miller. Really, there was a lot of questions about, can you explain things, just technical terms that maybe they weren't familiar with. Regional sediment management, had to explain what that is, beneficially using dredge materials. Oh, okay, got it. Things like that. There were questions about sea level rise, subsidence, climate change, climate vulnerability, beach and coastal community vulnerability. So there was some wordsmithing sometimes we had to do to make certain that they understood what we were talking about. But those are the type, it was really, the questions mainly came from trying to explain what some of the technical terms were. But that's a good question. Anything else, Christina?
That was it for now.
Okay. Let's see. While I'm changing slides, anybody else can pipe up if they have a question for me. All right. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit now, and we'll talk about our efforts on Capitol Hill in 2021. They were not in person, I can tell you that, because of COVID. But we had great support for the Regional Ocean Partnership Act again this year in the Senate with Senators Wicker and Cassidy, Wicker from Mississippi and Cassidy from Louisiana. They introduced the Regional Ocean Partnership Act again in the Senate in July of 21. And Congressman Christ of Florida and Congressman Palazzo of Mississippi introduced it in the House in August of 2021. So I wanted to make a note here, while those weren't the only senators and congressmen who were sponsors of this bill, they were the leads on both sides. And so while this bill actually addresses regional ocean partnerships from across the country, notice who is leading this effort. Notice it is our Gulf senators and Gulf congressmen who are proud to support regional ocean partnerships primarily because of the great work that you all do through GOMA. So I wanted to point that out. The purpose of the bill is really to just formally authorize the 4 regional ocean partnerships from across the nation as a part of NOAA within the U.S. federal government. And the reason is so that the regions can really focus on issues that are a priority for that region and not have them, dictated from some other region, so that the regions can be inclusive and provide a voice for a wide variety of stakeholders. Not everybody does, and we're trying to make sure that everybody does that. Another purpose for the bill is to bring intentional coordination and collaboration around those priority issues. Sometimes if you don't do it intentionally, it doesn't happen. Everybody always means to, but it just doesn't happen. But then also to be able to leverage public and private funding. We down here in the Gulf have really great support from our private partners, and we're always looking for support from our public partners as well. The other regions are not don't have as great of a track record, but they're working on it, and we're trying to help those regions as well. One thing that's important to note that the Act actually contains language allowing federal agencies to enter into agency agreements directly with the ROPs if this bill passes. So the status right now is the bill passed out of the Senate Commerce Committee, so that's good. It's waiting a full vote on the Senate floor, and currently it's in the House Natural Resources Committee waiting for markup. So we're awaiting final passage. Fingers crossed for this year. I've gotten good responses from the staffers that I'm working with on Capitol Hill that this is actually going to go this year. Let's see, and actually here's a map of the 4 different ROPs, regional ocean partnerships. You can see there's one on the West Coast. There's us right there in the Gulf region. There's a Mid-Atlantic and a North Atlantic. And so, as many of you know, the bipartisan infrastructure bill passed in late 2021, and it actually had some funding through NOAA for regional ocean partnerships. And like I said, there's 4 of us around the region, and they're actually named, those 4 are actually named in the bill that we just talked about a moment ago. The purpose, though, of these funds, as identified in the infrastructure bill, is very brief. It's really to coordinate and collaborate to implement priority actions, aka GOMA projects, right? And to enhance data sharing. So right now we don't know more than that. That's all we've seen. Just like you have, there's the the bill was 2,000 some odd pages. We're basically one paragraph in 2,000 pages. So I think we're going to get more guidance. I know we're going to get more guidance eventually from NOAA. I think they're working out the details on their end first, and then they're going to roll it out to us. But we'll have more guidance on that later this year. So please stay tuned. This should be a great way to fund some of our priority team projects. Let's see, and I'll pause again to see if there's any additional questions.
You're good right now.
All right, I'm going to keep cruising then, y'all. There's somebody.
This is Larry.
Hey, Larry.
Hey, where did they come up with the 56, with the number 56 million in that?
That's a great question, and I happen to know the answer to that. So on the previous slide that I mentioned, the Regional Ocean Partnership Act, it actually has funding limits in it for 5 years. So if this bill ever passes, it'll have authorization funding in there for 5 years, and if you add up those 5 years, it comes to 56 million. So this bill, this one little paragraph in the bill actually relies very heavily on the bill that's been floating around for several years up there in Congress. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? I'm going to keep cruising then. Now, no, I'm just kidding. So that's where we are and where we're going from here in 22. Let's talk about that. Of course, our team projects are actually how we achieve our actions in the action plan. So I probably need to have a slide for each and every one of these projects because they're all exciting and they all have lots and lots of words and pictures to go with, or will have pictures to go with them. So most of them haven't started yet. We have a whole slate of team projects scheduled for 2022. Some are carried over from 21, and then some are brand new projects that we're just now developing. And this is just a small sampling of them, the projects that we're going to have for 22. We've got more in the works and development that I didn't feel they weren't quite solid enough to put on a slide, but they should be in the next month or so. So we've got more in the works. So if you're a GOMA team member, please stay tuned because there's lots of good stuff coming out of our projects for this year. And of course, our Gulf Star partnership grows more and more every year. This is how we fund our projects. This partnership leverages public funding from states and feds with funding from our business partners. This funding is totally different and apart, separated from the infrastructure stuff that we've been talking about. We've had this Gulf Star funding now. I think we're going on our 4th or 5th year of Gulf Star funding. So we're very very lucky here in the Gulf to have such great partners that want to contribute and provide funding for our GOMA teams to do what they do. As we grow our Gulf Star partnership, we can do more and bigger projects for the teams. So as you can see, we're set to tackle GOMA team projects in 22 with the help of even more Gulf Star partners. I wanted to point out new for this year is Motiva, that's a new one. Citgo is new, and I believe Hancock Whitney Bank is new for 22. So that's a huge achievement to add 3 new partners in 1 year. All right, switching gears again a little bit, but another big thing on the horizon for 2022 is I want you all to be sure to join us at GOMACon. Please write these dates down, April 25 through 28. It's going to be in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. If you've been around the Gulf for a while, you'll remember that Hart Research Institute would hold the State of the Gulf Summit every 3 years, and that GOMRI would hold their GOMOSAS conference every year, and GOMA holds our all hands meeting every year. So this GOMCon conference, as in the Gulf of Mexico conference, y'all get it, GOMCon. This GOMCon conference is a combination of all 3 of those conferences or meetings that have traditionally been kind of siloed. So you had your academic conference, your policy conference, and your natural resource conference, and we're trying to really get those all three, create a nexus between all three of those target audiences. This is our first attempt, but so far we're off to a great start. We have one day of pre-meeting workshop type things. Then we'll have 2 days of plenary, followed by breakout presentations and a tools cafe that evening, on that Tuesday evening. Then we'll have a final day, the Thursday, which is when all the GOMA teams will be able to meet, but also other groups will be able to meet as well. So all that adds up to 4 days of networking. So you can find the announcement about GOMACon. You can go to gulfofmexicoalliance.org/announcements/alliance meetings. It's 4 days of networking with 1,000 of your closest friends and colleagues. So you really should plan to be there if you can. So speaking of those breakout sessions, those presentations, I wanted to mention we have received over 300, maybe over 350, can't remember, abstracts for presentations in the following theme areas: resilience, climate impacts, citizen science and community outreach, habitat management and restoration, living resources, water and sediment management, water quality and quantity, and then other emerging issues. So as you can see, we are touching on all the major challenges that the Gulf is facing today. So even like wind energy or offshore wind will fall into this emerging issues category. So we should be able to find ways to work together to address all of these common challenges at GOMACon. I'll mention too that these are our sponsors of the conference so far, and there's more in the works. So as you can see, this is going to be a very large gathering of a wide variety of Gulf stakeholders, and you probably don't want to miss it. We're expecting about 1,000 people. So the sooner you can get registered, the better. We will fill up eventually. We're not full right now, so that's good. But we will fill up eventually. So please be sure to register. And if you're on here and you're a sponsor of this conference, I want to thank you because this is going to be a really great conference. Let's see. Okay, also on the horizon for 22 for GOMA is our new Gulf of Mexico Open Data Portal, or most of us just call it GOMOD. So with support from NOAA through their Regional Data Sharing Initiative, we've been working with Esri for the last several years to build our Esri hub-based data sharing platform, and it was just released this past fall. It has some basic theme maps on it already for bathymetry, offshore energy, and several priority habitats. And we're working with NOAA and BOEM and EPA to add more theme maps every day. And I know that this is a long and drawn out web address. I think there's a better one on the next. Yeah, this is the shortened web address right here. gulfofmexicoalliance.org/GOMOD. We're also working to do deeper dives on some of those priority habitats already. We've got a comprehensive mapping of seagrass habitat curated by expert stakeholders with data layers. Speaking of Larry, who was on just a moment ago, he's one of the drivers for that. The next deep dive priority habitat that we're going to work on is oysters. And already an oyster community of practice is formed, and it's driving the acquisition of the data sets. So that's good. We're hoping that it will be released probably later this spring. So I'm switching gears again because I'm talking about things on the horizon for 2022. We're also starting a diversity, equity, and inclusiveness internship program where we place paid interns with state resource agencies across the Gulf. This should be a multi-year program, and we're pretty excited about it. Our goal is to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion in the ecosystem science or natural resource management arena. While we plan to place interns in state agencies, we also plan to provide mentors for them and hopefully have things like job fairs for them on a regular basis. We want to really entice these bright and talented young people to be interested in our arena of natural resource management, and to stick around and lend their expertise to the region where there's so much work to be done. So 2022 is going to be a big year. Just to recap, there's some knowns, but also some unknowns. Some of the knowns is come to GOMACon. It's a great way to find out what people are working on. We know that that is going to be the place to be. We had over 300 abstracts submitted, maybe 350. There's going to be lots of opportunities for networking and sidebar meetings at GOMACon. Also join a GOMA team. We also know this is where the real work of GOMA gets done. Team membership is free. Just simply submit your name to join a team on our website. We need as many voices as possible to formulate effective projects that meet the actions in our new action plan. So your voice at the table is important. And then lastly, GOMA is a great place for anybody to connect. It's a great place to find government resources or community partners or NGO advocacy or business support. There's quite a large community in the Gulf focused on collaboration and sharing. So another known is if you can get connected inside GOMA, then it's a great way to make strategic partnerships. So the unknowns really is just the sky's the limit. How much can we do together? We've got lots of funding, great private funding sources coming on board this year, and we've also got some great public money coming in the door. So GOMA's poised, and GOMA teams are poised to really knock out a lot of projects this year, and we're excited about it. And I will pause one more time for questions.
Anyone has questions, you can put them in the chat, or if you'd like to come off of mute and ask Laura, you can do that as well.
Yes, feel free to come off of mute and ask me too. Let's see, I can see that there is, I can see that there are a few questions here in the chat box. Sorry, I didn't have the chat on. I have to find them.
Most of it I've been putting in links and resources for people. We did have one question about GOMACon, which I went ahead and answered, asking about if there's a virtual option.
Yes, the GOMACon will be in person. We've got room blocks to fill, so that's one reason. But also, we're really feeling like we're going to be able to do this year. We've had several other large conferences happen in the Gulf of Mexico, and they were very well attended, starting in about the August timeframe. I know one in particular that happened in August, one in November, one in December, that were very well attended. So I think everybody's ready for that. All right, any other questions? Well, y'all are an easy crowd. You must all know about GOMA already. So that's good. Preaching to the choir. All right, with that, Christina, I'm done. I'll give it back to you.
Okay, great. I'll just let everyone know our next webinar will be Wednesday, March 30th. Dave Reed from GOMA will be giving a preview of the Gulf of Mexico conference. So we'll have more information about specific sessions and information about the program to share. So please come back and join us at the end of March for our next Wednesday webinar. And with that, have a great day, everyone.